The narrator introduces the alien princess, Lyra, known for her sharp mind and cold heart. Lyra has publicly declared she will never marry anyone, rejecting all alien suitors. Suspense. The palace is abuzz because a human has arrived, a rare visitor who might change everything. Lyra is shown observing the human, Kale, from a high balcony. Intrigued but skeptical, Kale is not like any alien she's met. He is kind, curious, and surprisingly brave in the face of alien customs. Lyra observes him helping alien citizens quietly. He never seeks attention, unlike the flashy alien suitors. Small moments of connection. Kale smiles when she studies him, notices details she thinks no one sees. Tension. Lyra's advisors warn her to stay distant. They fear a human-human alliance could threaten the galaxy's delicate balance. The episode ends with a cliffhanger. Lyra catches Kale risking his life to save a wounded alien child from an accident. She is shocked, and a tiny smile appears on her face, her first emotional crack. Welcome to my channel Starlight Sci-Fi Stories. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. The planet of Viora was alive with color. Floating gardens shimmered under the pale light of 3 suns, and crystal towers reached high into the sky, reflecting a rainbow of colors across the city. But amid the beauty, the palace of Princess Lyra stood silent, its tall spires casting long shadows over the streets below. Lyra was famous across the galaxy, not for her beauty, though she was striking, but for her mind, her intelligence, and, most of all, her refusal to marry. She had publicly declared that she would never marry anyone, alien or human. Many whispered about her cold heart, but Lyra didn't care. She had her reasons, and she believed no one could ever change her mind. But everything was about to change. A rare human had arrived on Viora, a human who was supposed to be nothing more than a visitor. Humans were fragile, their planet small, their technology primitive compared to the great civilizations of the galaxy. And yet, for reasons that Lyra didn't understand, this human had been given special permission to enter the city. His name was Kale. No one knew much about him, except that he had a quiet confidence, a gentle smile, and an unusual curiosity about everything around him. The palace was buzzing with excitement and gossip. Advisors whispered behind closed doors, debating how to deal with the human. Some said he might be dangerous. Others argued he could be useful. But Lyra, she simply watched. From the balcony of her highest tower, she observed him walking through the streets, completely unaware of her gaze. Kale was helping an old alien merchant lift a crate of glowing fruit. When the merchant stumbled, Kale's hands were there in an instant, steadying him. The crowd clapped quietly, impressed, but Kale only smiled and walked on. It was a small act, but Lyra felt something. Curiosity, something she had not felt in a long time. Her advisors approached her that evening. "Princess," said one, bowing low, "the human is unlike any visitor we've ever had. Should we prepare a formal greeting?" Lyra shook her head. "No," she said softly. "I want to watch. Let him reveal himself." The advisors exchanged worried looks. They had no idea why she was so interested. After all, Lyra had refused all suitors for a reason. She did not fall in love. She did not trust easily. And humans were unpredictable. The next day, Kale walked through the central plaza. Children ran around him, laughing, and he bent down to tie a little girl's shoes. He spoke in the alien language flawlessly, though his accent was strange. Lyra watched, hidden in the shadow of a tall tower, as he handed the girl a small, glowing trinket from his pocket. The girl's eyes lit up, and she ran off to tell her parents. Lyra's lips twitched. She almost smiled. Almost. The day continued with small but notable acts. Kale guided lost citizens to their homes, helped clean the plaza after a sudden rainstorm, and even stopped to listen to an elderly alien who muttered about the changes in the city. Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest. She had seen many humans in her life, but none had behaved like this. None had treated her world with such care. And then it happened. A commotion erupted in the market square. A cart carrying a rare and dangerous creature had toppled, and the beast broke free, thrashing wildly. People screamed and ran, trying to escape. Lyra froze, her breath caught in her throat. This was dangerous, life-threatening. Without thinking, Kale rushed toward the creature. He moved carefully, speaking softly, trying to calm it. 1 step, 2 steps, the crowd held its breath. And then, with a daring leap, he managed to guide the creature back into the cart, securing it before it could harm anyone. Lyra gasped. She had never seen such courage. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched the balcony railing. This human, he was unlike anyone she had ever met. Her advisors arrived seconds later, out of breath. "Princess, he could have died. We must speak to him immediately. It is dangerous to allow a human such freedom." Lyra shook her head. "No, let him be. I want to see more." For hours, she continued to watch. Every act Kale performed, no matter how small, revealed his kindness, his bravery, and his thoughtfulness. And with each act, Lyra's carefully constructed walls began to crack, ever so slightly. That evening, she found herself walking through the palace gardens, thinking about him. She had always believed that love was a weakness, a distraction from duty and logic. But now, she felt something stirring inside her, an emotion she didn't understand. Curiosity, admiration, something more. She shook her head. She could not allow herself to think of it as love. But fate had other plans. A few nights later, a small accident occurred in the palace itself. A servant had been careless with a tray of glowing liquids, and one of them spilled near the outer gardens. A flame ignited, and it began spreading quickly. The palace guards rushed to put it out, but the fire was spreading faster than expected. Lyra watched from her tower as Kale, who had been invited to a small banquet, noticed the smoke. Without hesitation, he ran toward the danger, helping the guards to contain the flames. In the chaos, a small alien child was trapped near the fire. Without a second thought, Kale leaped into the danger, scooped the child into his arms, and brought them safely to the gardens. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. Her breath caught in her throat. For the first time, she realized she was watching someone with her entire being, every thought, every glance focused on him. And then, something she had never done before happened. She smiled. It was a small, hesitant smile, but it was real. Her advisors noticed. They gasped. "Princess, you smiled." At a human, Lyra's eyes were fixed on Kale. "Yes," she whispered, "and I do not understand why." That night, Lyra could not sleep. She replayed every scene, every smile, every kind act Kale had shown. He had no desire to impress, no hidden motives, no arrogance. He was simple in his humanity, yet extraordinary in his courage. And the more she thought about it, the more she realized that perhaps, just perhaps, humans were not as weak or fragile as she had believed. The next morning, Lyra found herself walking in the palace gardens, hoping to see him again. And she did. Kale was tending to a wounded alien bird, carefully wrapping its wing with delicate hands. Lyra stood at a distance, observing, and for the first time, she felt a pang of longing. She wanted to speak to him, to ask him who he truly was, where he came from, and why he cared so much. But she could not bring herself to move. Instead, she watched, and waited. The story of Lyra and Kale was only beginning. But part 1 ends with the princess finally admitting, even if only to herself, that something inside her had changed. The cold, unyielding heart of the Veyran princess had cracked, and a tiny spark of curiosity, and perhaps love, had begun to burn. Lyra smiled as she watched Kale lift the small bird, unaware that her advisors were already plotting to separate them. The galaxy was watching, and nothing would ever be the same. The morning after the fire incident, the palace was unusually quiet. Lyra walked slowly through the gardens, her thoughts still tangled with images of Kale's bravery. Every time she remembered how he had risked his life for a child, or how he had tended to the wounded bird without hesitation, her chest tightened. She couldn't deny it any longer. Something inside her had shifted. Kale, unaware of the princess's watchful gaze, moved through the palace grounds with the same gentle determination as before. Today, he was helping a group of alien children repair a broken hover toy, patiently showing them how to reattach the floating panels. Lyra lingered behind a flowering bush, her heart swelling at the sight. How could one human hold such courage, kindness, and patience all at once? Her advisors, however, were growing increasingly worried. "Princess," one whispered as she passed, "he is a human. You cannot let your heart be swayed. He is fragile. His presence here endangers the palace, and perhaps even the stability of our planet." Lyra ignored him. She could not explain it, but she was drawn to Kale. She didn't understand this feeling, but it was strong, persistent, and impossible to ignore. The secret meetings over the next few days, Lyra found ways to encounter Kale without drawing attention. She wandered into the gardens at odd hours, pretending to inspect the flora, only to discover him there, tending to plants, feeding birds, or helping citizens quietly. Each encounter was brief, yet meaningful. One evening, as the suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of violet and gold, Lyra finally approached him directly. Cale looked up in surprise. "Princess Lyra," he said softly, bowing slightly. "I did not expect to see you here." Lyra felt her cheeks warm, but she maintained her composure. I enjoy the gardens," she said simply. "And I noticed you here often. You care for these plants, and the creatures, with patience and respect." I wanted to understand why. Cale smiled, his eyes gentle. "I care for life wherever I find it. Your world, it is beautiful, and every living thing deserves attention." That's all. Lyra considered his words. Simple, honest, and yet they resonated deeply within her. She had met many aliens and humans, yet none had spoken with such clarity, such sincerity. She felt herself drawn closer, not just physically, but emotionally. The rising threat but their budding connection could not remain secret for long. Word of Cale's presence and unusual interactions with the princess spread quickly among the palace officials. Some saw this as an opportunity to form alliances, while others viewed it as a threat. A council of influential nobles convened secretly. The princess must not grow close to the human. One argued, it will undermine her authority, and perhaps even destabilize Vera's alliances. Another nodded, we must remove him from the palace. He is dangerous, not because of his strength, but because of his influence. He is changing her heart. Unknown to Cale and Lyra, plans were already being made to send him back to Earth immediately. The stakes were high, and time was running out. The crisis days later, an emergency shook the city. A sudden tremor hit the floating gardens, causing parts of the structure to collapse. Citizens screamed and ran for safety. Lyra, watching from the palace tower, saw Cale sprinting toward the danger, guiding people away from falling debris. Her heart raced. She wanted to call out, to warn him, but she was paralyzed by fear. And then she saw a child trapped under a fallen beam. Without hesitation, Cale lifted it off the ground, shielding the child with his own body. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. This human, so fragile by her standards, was braver than anyone she had ever known. She could feel tears pricking her eyes as she watched him, her emotions spilling over in a way she had never allowed before. Finally, the danger passed. Cale emerged, dusted in debris, the child safe in his arms. He looked up, scanning the crowd, and his eyes met hers. For a long moment, neither spoke. Lyra's heart was pounding, and she realized, with shocking clarity, that she had fallen in love. Understanding love that night, Lyra could not sleep. She wandered through the gardens, recalling every moment with Cale, his courage, his kindness, his unwavering humility. She had always thought love was unnecessary, a distraction from duty and reason. But she now understood that love was not a weakness, it was a strength. Love could inspire courage, patience, and selflessness. Cale had shown her that. The next day, Lyra decided to take a bold step. She approached Cale in the gardens while he tended to injured birds, as he often did. "Cale," she began softly, I need to understand something." He looked up, attentive. "Anything, princess." Lyra took a deep breath. "Why do you care so much for others? You could leave, and no one would blame you. Yet you choose to help, to risk yourself for strangers. Why?" Cale paused, thinking carefully. "Because it is the right thing to do. Because life is precious, and we must protect it whenever we can. Not for glory, not for recognition, just because it matters." Lyra's chest tightened. His words were simple, but they pierced her heart. She realized that this was the essence of what she had been missing: compassion, courage, and care that did not demand anything in return. She smiled, genuinely this time, feeling a warmth she had never known. A public display. The council, unaware of Lyra's growing affection, planned to announce Cale's removal the following day. But fate intervened. During a ceremonial gathering in the palace, an unexpected problem arose. A malfunction in the central energy core caused sparks and a sudden power surge. Chaos erupted. Citizens panicked, and guards struggled to contain the situation. Without hesitation, Cale rushed to stabilize the core. Lyra watched, knowing that if he failed, countless lives could be lost. Her fear turned into determination. She could not, would not, let him face this danger alone. She stepped forward, directing guards, guiding citizens, and helping Cale stabilize the core. Together, they worked in perfect coordination. Sparks flew dangerously close, and for a brief, terrifying moment, a small explosion shook the chamber. Kale shielded her instinctively, and she realized in that instant how deeply she cared for him. When the danger finally passed, the chamber was quiet. Kale stood, breathing heavily, his hands covered in soot. Lyra's eyes met his, and for the first time, she spoke words she had kept inside. You saved everyone," she said softly. "And I think I understand now." Kale's gaze softened. "Understand what?" Lyra's voice trembled. "Love. I think I understand love, because of you." The first true smile. Kale stepped closer, unsure but gentle. "Princess." "Lyra, I never expected," she interrupted with a small laugh, warm and genuine, the sound carrying across the hall. "I never expected either," she admitted. "I thought I would never care for anyone. But, you've changed me." Kale reached for her hand, and for the first time, Lyra did not pull away. She allowed herself to feel, to hope, to trust. Her advisors watched in stunned silence. The princess, known for her icy demeanor, was smiling at a human, and the smile was full of warmth, courage, and something else entirely, love. The ending, cliffhanger. That night, Lyra stood on the balcony, looking at the three suns setting over Viora. Kale was beside her, silent but present. No words were needed, they understood each other perfectly. Yet, in the shadows, the council's plan was still in motion. Kale's presence on Viora could not be tolerated forever. The galaxy was watching, and the stakes had never been higher. But for now, Lyra allowed herself one moment of peace, one moment of joy. She had discovered something extraordinary, something she had never believed possible. She had discovered love, and she knew that whatever challenges came next, she would face them with Kale by her side. The story ended with her smile lingering on the viewer's mind, a smile that spoke of courage, trust, and a love that could defy worlds.